is time for another best of 3 series in StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a professional Zerg versus Terran. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've actually been really enjoying doing these casts, pretty much on the daily nowadays. I mean, I've been doing a lot more, in particular in 2017 so far, and it seems like a lot of you are enjoying them as well. Now, of course, definitely do keep the feedback coming. I've been trying to read as many of the comments as possible, and slowly but surely, pun intended, I am I am trying to improve my cast. All of the legitimate feedback, of course, I've been trying to really, you know, try and incorporate that into my own cast as well. I've been trying to make sure that they become better over time as well. So if you have got some legitimate feedback, let me know down below in the comments. I'm always trying to keep an eye out on it because I think I can definitely do a better job. Well, we're getting there. Slowly but surely, once again, we are getting there. Apparently, by the way, for those of you that missed that, I apparently repeat slowly but surely very often. I've been working on that over the last few weeks. Still saying it every now and then, but not every 3 sentences. Anyway, let's start off today by introducing both of the players. Spawning in the bottom left corner, playing for Team Liquid, playing with the red Zerg pieces. He is known as Liquid Snute. And his opponent, spawning all the way on the other end of the map, playing with the blue Terran pieces right here. He is known as Jjakji. Now, of course, Jjakji is indeed a Korean player. He ended up winning a GSL quite a couple of years ago. Very, very high-level Terran player, and he's been around for a while right now. He's always been participating in very high-level tournaments, and I always really enjoy watching him play, as he's just simply very, very good at what he does. Of course, Liquid Snute on the other end, I mean, I think if you've watched any kind of StarCraft 2 over the last few years, you probably have seen his name pop up here and there, because he's been around since forever. He's been playing StarCraft 2 for a long time. He's always been a top contender, and he's always one of those players that could easily take, you know, victories off of the best in the world. He's a very nice guy as well. Got to meet him at several events, and honestly, he's a genuinely really cool person. So anyways, it looks like he decided to open up with a hatchery first. He's getting himself a couple of queens right now as well, so he can start some additional larva production. And interesting to note, he did indeed pull the drones out of the gas geyser, which usually does indicate that he will be skipping out the overlord speed initially, but follow it up with a bunch more queens instead. Now, the first Reaper just making his way across the map already. We do see that factory follow up here, as well as the reactor. Do we indeed see that scout as well? Yep, looks like Snute indeed did get a full scout off of exactly what it is the Terran player is going for. And that's huge, because that all of a sudden warrants the lack of the overlord speed, as all of a sudden he will be able to figure out exactly what it is his opponent has got in store for us here today. And once again, nice little bit of micro there, keeping that drone alive to the best of his ability. And so far, that Reaper has not picked up a single kill yet. That is pretty wild, actually. I mean, there are 6 Zerglings out, and all of them did take a bunch of hits, but with some really cute micro, and, you know, shooing that that Reaper away eventually with that Queen right there. It turns out that that Reaper really didn't achieve a whole lot, other than, you know, scout out that the Zerg indeed is going for something very, very standard. Apparently, the Marine was trying to hunt down this single Overlord. Looks like that was not the case this time around. And the first Hellions are already on the production right now, and as well, oh my god, that's really cool actually. He's going for a super quick 3rd command center follow-up. Now, I always really like seeing this, because in many instances, that 3rd command center follow-up will be a response according to what happened in the game earlier. So, what may have very well happened right now is that he knew that Liquid Snute scouted out exactly what build was going on with that very first Overlord. He knows as well that Snute is then gonna follow this up with a whole bunch of Zerglings, and because of that, he knows that he's most likely gonna be countered if he decides to, for example, add on more aggression. But hold that thought, because a lot of Zerglings indeed have been produced, and they are being sent across the map. Nice bit of micro so far though by Jjakji, keeping that weakened Hellion alive, although it is gonna pay for its life right there just a little while later. But solid hold so far though. Only a few buildings or a few units do end up falling. A few SCVs though do end up going down there, as well as a mule. So I would say that really isn't that big of a deal right now for Jjakji. Of course, he will need to start spending his minerals, but once again, he's got that 3rd command center, and with that, he will be able to start mining with 3 mules as well. The Reaper, in the meantime, has scouted out exactly what the Zerg player is going for as well, and of course, we can have a sneak little peek, as indeed that Roach Warren is down. Now, will he see it? Yep, he will most definitely be able to figure out exactly what it is the Zerg player has got in store for him today, and at the same time, the Hellions sneak into the main base now that the Queen indeed were distracted, and a lot of these drones are gonna indeed have to join the drone barbecue, because look at that, all of them end up burning, and this is a beautiful little counter attack here. knowing exactly what his opponent got. I mean, after following that up with more Zerglings, right, with the initial aggression, the chances of the Zerg droning up as a follow-up were significantly higher than the Zerg just simply sitting back, and so far, this is most definitely looking pretty solid right here for Jjakji. Now still, right, he's got that supply disadvantage, and the reason for that is simply that he's been forced to produce a lot of things that he can't really use for the time being, but given a couple more minutes, he will be in an absolutely beautiful state. And of course, roaches, generally speaking, they sort of feel like they betray the supply count, you know what I mean? Like, they are a very supply-heavy unit. They're also very cheap for the amount of supply that they cost. It basically prevents you from just simply maxing out on a gazillion roaches. You can still, of course, make a lot of them, but if they were, say, for example, one supply each, which is what they used to be in the beta version of Wings of Liberty, they actually used to be one supply each, and they had a lot more armor as well. The unit was absolutely overpowered, like absolutely insane back then, but you know, the supply counts would have been a lot more fair in that scenario, but of course, the Zerg is indeed gonna start moving across the map, and it looks like Jjakji has been sniffing out exactly what it is he is up against, because look at the amount of bunkers that are going down. He's desperately trying to add on a siege tank right now as well. He's got a lot of Marines in production as well as a Liberator, skipping out the +1/+1 upgrades at the very least for the time being, whereas the Zerg, he may very well decide to not even push up to the high ground, knowing very well what is going on, and right now Jjakji will be able to scan. He knows now indeed that the Zerg wasn't planning on getting very aggressive at all. He simply overreacted to the amount of aggression that he saw moving across the map, and by spotting all of those drones at the third, he's going to be happy to once again salvage the piggyback bunkers, because, you know, the piggyback bunkers basically will just, you know, give you your resources back after a little while. You do lose a little bit, but regardless, they do give him all of the resources back, and eventually he is indeed going to be able to float over his orbital command towards the third base location. I think that means that we sort of have a macro situation going on, right? Both players not really taking any risks in this very first game. I mean, sure, we did see some aggression, sure, we did see some drone and SUV losses as well, but all things considered, this is looking very, very solid. Now, considering Jjakji has got that third command center up as early as he did, right, he really doesn't have that much supply. Instead, he's been saving up a bunch of energy here, and he's been using quite a lot of scans, and I think he may have been very well misreading what the Zerg player has got in store for him right here, assuming that his opponent would be going much more aggressive than Snute actually ended up going in this particular match right here. Now, he's actually right here, excuse me. He's actually following this up with a bunch of Infester. He's got that infestation pit up rather early here as well. Of course, the combination of, for example, a fungal growth and then corrosive biles is extremely powerful and has a lot of potency, but you do have to hit the biles pretty much perfectly, and you do also, of course, have to hit the fungal in order to make that work. And here's the thing, right? Siege tanks in particular, they will be able to deal a ton of damage. They deal up to 70 damage per shot, plus splash damage, of course, to armored units such as, for example, roaches. So really, it all comes down to the engagement and how exactly it takes place. If it is going to be on creep, the Zerg player in general is going to be pretty happy. Now, a few Zerglings are trying to run by right now. They may very well be able to get into the main base. I really like this double wall off, by the way. Beautiful move, but with none of the depots lifted, and actually you see some in the main base as well, allowing all of these links to come through, this is not, you know, actually, it looked a lot worse than it actually ended up being. I really like this wall, though. Look at that. That's so cute. But anyways, a lot of the Zerg units are starting to engage right now with the Terran forces. The Terran is currently trying to clean up as much creep as possible as well. That creep is going to slowly recede, but of course, one thing to keep in mind here is that in order to advance towards this hatchery, you will have to engage on creep here just a little while later. I really like this move though, because of course there are a few drones going down, but more importantly, he's got a beautiful concave here. I mean, what exactly is the Zerg going to be able to do against this sort of onslaught, right? If he moves inside of that siege tank range, it's going to be very tricky for him to actually come out of that engagement ahead once again. A few of these Marines apparently bugging out a couple of the roaches that just spawned as well, but with this kind of spread, very tricky to achieve anything. At the same time, two dropships have also made their way towards the main base, although that one hero Spore Crawler is doing so much damage, and indeed, it does get shut down. That is about a good 20 supply worth of units that did indeed get shut down. But of course, what we did see out of that is a lot of workers go down. And on top of that, Snute is indeed held back for the time being. Is there a hive going in just yet? I don't think he's actually... No, he's still at that lair tech here. So he's actually forced to add on Zerglings now as well. Not quite the unit that I think he was hoping for at this point in the game. And so far, this is looking like a very, very solid map here. Now, of course, regardless, the Zerg player does still a ton of army supply here as well. You can see the APM spiking up to over 800s. I know that some of these players get over 1,000 actions per minute during engagements, which is absolutely wild. You got to keep in mind that is more than 10 buttons a second, which is, you know, adds up very, very quickly. Regardless, though, this is going to be a little bit tricky. A command center is going to try and float over towards the central expansion, not going to the one up north. But I've got a bit of a feeling that with these roaches here, at the very least for right now, they will not be able to land. There are quite a couple of infestors. Infestors do have full energy, so that does mean that they will be able to send out quite a few fungal growths. With some proper lands on those marines, that could definitely hurt quite a bit. But nice positioning here as well of all of these missile turrets. They will be able to spot the incoming infestors very, very easily. But here we go. The Zerg player starting to engage, trying to land the corrosive bios on as many of these siege tanks as he possibly can. Beautiful shove forward here, though, because it seems like Terran just simply may not have enough. That early game economy, he simply just got misread right there. You can see the amount of damage that is being done right here by the Zerg just by building up more and more supply, as well as very solid upgrades here in the earlier stages of the game. He just simply managed to roll over all of these Terran units. Now that siege tanks indeed will be taken care of as well, and so many units end up falling. Roaches are indeed on the production tab now. Of course, he's trying to supply block the Terran to the best of his abilities as well, and a lot of these SCVs do indeed end up falling. I wonder though, is that enough damage? Meanwhile, the Fort Base Command Center has lifted in that central base location. 11 more roaches are coming in right now, with tons more actually reinforcing this army here as well. Snute is looking extremely powerful. Forced the liftoff right there as well. That command center is currently burning, and with that last corrosive bio, I think it may very well burn to its death. And there indeed, that command center will end up falling, which is gonna hurt the Terran's economy a lot. On top of that, a lot of the SCVs indeed ended up falling. And while there are indeed a lot of marauders added to that fight now as well, I'm starting to be a little bit worried here for the Terran units, because they simply are in much smaller numbers. Snute doubling his opponent's supply right now, going for that Ultralisk Cavern as well, getting himself the +3/+1 upgrades, which are incredible. Of course, they do extremely well against all of these Terran units right now that he is indeed going up against, not taking any unnecessary risks either. So this does allow him to simply slowly advance forward towards the Terran's bases, and he's trying his very best to close out this game right here without really taking any unnecessary risks. Now, of course, just simply containing the Terran player on 3 bases is already going to be enough past the 10-minute mark, because that main is already going to be very low. That natural is running very low as well, and while there is indeed a fusion core down, and we could potentially see some switches here, for example, into that range. I don't know if he's actually already got the ranged upgrade right there. No, he doesn't have the ranged upgrade for the Liberators just yet, but regardless, I highly doubt that we're going to see better crews in this game, because there are so many units. And there we have that combo that I was talking about. The fungal growth going down with the follow-up of the corrosive bios, and indeed in game number 1, Liquid Snute is going to be able to obtain the victory. Game number 2 will be on Proxima Station LE. Spawning in the bottom left corner of the map, we have none other than the Zerg player, currently up 1-0. He is known as Snute. And his opponent, well, he's got to pull everything together a little bit more tightly, I suppose, than he did in game number 1, because that definitely wasn't looking as pretty. I mean, if he plays a game like that once again, Snute is going to be able to roll over him every single time. He is known as Jjakji. That was a very elaborate intro, Lowko. Very elaborate intro indeed. Now, I wonder if he's gonna go for that quick gas geyser once again. A lot of Terran players have been favoring it, but it looks like Jjakji is indeed gonna go for the barracks first and then follow it up with the gas geyser instead. So that does mean that he will not be going for that super quick factory this time around, and he may very well be playing something a little bit more standard here. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that he's not gonna build a factory anytime soon. It's just not gonna be the super fast variant like we have been seeing quite a lot on the ladder, as well as in tournaments over the last few months. Ever really since, like, you know, the recent patches arrived and the siege tank play and whatnot became significantly more powerful, and the Cyclone got changed up all the way. Basically, the quick factory play became a lot more prevalent in a lot of competitive games, but so far it looks like Jjakji is not going to be going for anything along those lines just yet. It's actually kind of cool, right? So, we did see recently a massive shift in the meta. Players have started opening up with all kinds of different units, but eventually people switch back into the good old 16 Marine drops, which used to be like the standard play for Terrans versus Zerg for like years, right? And then all of a sudden, or not like years, but I guess it was like for the most part during very quick third expansion, by the way. But anyway, for the most part during like Legacy of the Void, the 16 Marine drop was so common. that all of a sudden, like for example, the build that Jjakji went for in the previous one, the quick Hellion play, has become more common as well. And it's funny because the Hellion has not been changed in a very long time. The only thing that has changed is the response that Zerg players make to seeing a factory with a reactor on it, because they know very well that there is a chance that their opponent is indeed going for that Cyclone play as well. And all of a sudden, because of the different responses that Zerg is forced to do, just the good old Hellion openers have become a little bit more powerful as well. And it's always cool to sort of like see this meta like shift around, right? In the past, for very many years, the Hellion play used to be extremely common, and we do indeed see that follow-up right here with the reactor and the factory once again. But for so many years, the Hellion opener was just the standard. Then the Marine-based openers became a little bit better because Zerg knew exactly how to deal with the Hellion-based openers. And all of a sudden, with a change to the Cyclone, the Hellion-based builds are back again in the meta. It is a pretty cool concept. Regardless, we do see that very quick third base follow-up in this match here for Snute, going for a super late gas geyser right here. I wonder if he's just going to go straight into the roaches, or if he's planning to go for the Zergling speed nonetheless. I wouldn't be surprised if he does either of those. He is adding on another queen right now in the main as well, walking that newly acquired one from the main towards the third two. So he's going to be able to start getting a lot of workers here. Not really like scared so far apparently of what he saw from the Terran player. I mean, he did scout out brilliantly, if I'm not mistaken, with that slow overlord once again. Exactly what it is the Terran player is going for. Now you may be wondering, does Snute know at this point that there is indeed an expansion up for the Terran player? Just by simply judging the timing right here of these buildings, Snute will know exactly what is going on with the Terran's point of the map. So indeed, he does feel comfortable enough here to make this many drones. I mean, so far, he knows that there is a, you know, reactored factory build coming in here. So far, apparently he feels safe enough to just simply sit back with a couple of queens instead and a few slow Zerglings. Now, no spine crawlers or whatever, this could be rather painful because there are already 2 Marines out on the map as well as a bunch of Hellions. But I wonder if Jjakji even wants to do anything. Look at his dance. That's beautiful, guys. That's absolutely beautiful. Don't exactly know when the Olympics are going to be, but I mean, synchronized Hellion driving should be an Olympic sport. I think that should be a thing. But anyway, we do indeed see that armory follow-up though, and actually, this is starting to be a little bit terrifying here for Snute. I mean, he does have a Baneling Nest coming in right here. He's got a few queens, but Zergling speed is very late, and there may very well be some Hellbats joining this army here very shortly once those Hellions can indeed be moved over. And look at Jjakji making a lot of units right now, getting himself that medevac as well, so he's going to be able to start moving here with a very powerful force. And while Zerg did just now finish up exactly scouting what is coming in, the thing is there is just simply not a whole lot of Zerg here, and actually Jjakji pushes at a brilliant timing. Look at that, knowing exactly when Zergling speed will finish up, knowing exactly when the Zerg can become more threatening. He's pushing in right before the Zerg would be able to counter this, and with that super late Baneling Nest as well as the non-existent Roach Warren, it looks like there is just simply going to be too many Terran units at this point in the game. There are 55 Harfesses versus only 36, so Jjakji is most definitely looking to do as much damage as he possibly can to these forces. But look at all of these links, they just die immediately. A few of those Banes will be able to connect just fine, but there are still so many Terran units here on the low ground that I'm starting to be a little bit worried here for the Zerg player, as so many of his units as well as his base are going to end up falling here. And while there are a few queens now, they're trying to shoo away as many of the Terran's units as possible. With that Liberator joining the fight and these queens falling, the Liberators are going to be able to have free reign, and indeed it looks like he's just simply going to put that down right there in the middle of that natural. Nothing to get rid of that, and with that, so many of these units will end up falling. Nice little bit of pickup micro as well on that medevac, killing so many of those drones. 6 more of them do end up falling, 12, 13, 14, 16 more. And indeed, Snute is gonna be forced to GG out. Well, there we have it, the final match of this best of 3 series, and it's going to be on Abyssal Reef Alley. We'll talk about the map in just a little bit, because this map is pretty cool. But spawning in the bottom left, or rather in the top left corner, we have the red Zerg player. He's known as Snute. And his opponent, playing in blue, playing on the other end of the map, he is known as Jjakji. Now, if you have a quick look, right, at all of the bases that are available on this map, there are an absolute ton of them. So, in particular, from the Zerg's point of view, there are quite a lot of expansions available. So this is the main base, the natural is right over here, but when it comes to the third base location, you've got quite a few options. The most common one is probably going to be right here, right next to the natural. However, some Zerg players have been favoring this one right here as well, with a much more wide open space to defend against any kind of aggression. Then this base is very easy to take as a follow-up. You can take this tucked in an expansion very easily as well, and the one in the top right corner. In the meantime, that opens up space for the one in the bottom left, and then, you know, you can start expanding towards your potential expansions from your opponent as well. And long story short, there is thus simply like a ton of bases available, and it's not unheard of on this map in particular for both players to go up to like 6 bases. Now, of course, it does take 2 players to play that game. I'm not entirely sure if that's what we're going to be seeing in this match right here, but regardless, I'm a little bit of a fanboy for macro games, so we'll see exactly what they've got, you know, in store for us for this final match right here today. Now, apparently Liquid Snute playing a little bit more conservatively in this last game right here. He's going for that quick, you know, extractor to start mining some additional Vespian gas right from the very beginning. And once again, Jjakji playing a very standard game here as well, although he is indeed getting himself a barracks with a, not a Reaper this time around, but going for the Marine instead. He will be able to get himself a fast expansion, and with this much gas already, I wouldn't be surprised if he very quickly follows up with a factory as well, and he could potentially go for like a... He's actually gonna go for a depot, never mind. He could be going for like a quick reactor Hellion play once again if he so desires. But he's already got quite a lot of gas banked, so I wonder what exactly he's got in store for us right here. I think he's once again going for the factory and the reactor though. I think that would make the most sense. Yeah, there we do indeed see the factory go down and then the reactor follow up. So once again, it may very well be a Hellion-based opener, and the nice thing about not opening up with the Reapers is that indeed you can get a few Marines out very early on into the map to start shooing down all of these Overlords. Now, speaking of which, look at this map. It's an aquarium. We're quite literally underwater. Now, the second Overlord trying desperately to fly back to safety. He's like, guys, get out of there. There's Marines on the map. Get on out of there. And he's trying his very best to float, I guess. I was gonna say fly, but I guess it's floating in this map is a little bit more appropriate. But regardless, there are indeed Zerglings out right now that will be able to start moving across the map. Still a reasonably quick third base here from Snute. Actually not making the additional queens here, but instead putting the drones out of gas once again to free up some additional minerals. Getting that Zergling speed upgrade nonetheless, but no third and fourth queens just yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for that follow-up here very shortly after. Now, of course, Jjakji already getting himself quite a lot of gas here. He will be able to start producing from the factory that he made to... you know, get just a couple of Hellions out. Of course, these Zerglings will be finishing up Zergling speed roughly around the same time, which is exactly the reason why everything is timed as tightly as it is, because right when the first Hellions come out, the Lynx will be able to get on out of there if they so desire. Now, apparently this one, somehow, some way, got burned on the, like, bottom of the ocean. I don't even know how that works. I mean, first off, how do flames work underwater? I guess it must be an extremely hot flame right here for that to even do a remote little bit of damage right there. But then also it just sort of floats to the floor of... I don't understand. Don't ask questions, Loko. Don't ask questions. This is a video game, Loko. This is not reality. Believe it or not. As far as my understanding goes, right? There's currently no space battles being fought out in an underwater aquarium between, you know, the Terran Dominion and then a bunch of swarmy insect kind of units as well. But regardless, Jjakji will be able to start potentially even a starport right here, but maybe another barracks. We'll see exactly what he's got in store for us here in just a little bit. He does have that quick third command center once again, so very similar build here to what he did in game number 1. He is indeed going to follow it up with a barracks, and he will be able to start mining here with a lot of resources. Nice little bit of map vision here already though from the Zerg player, getting as much vision as he can, and he will indeed figure out exactly what it is the Terran's got right now. He knows about the fact that there are a bunch of Hellions out, but other than that, he's mostly blind. There's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of information. Now, indeed, Jjakji is setting up for a macro-focused style. This is rather greedy by him, right? Going for that quick third command center, getting a lot of unit-producing structures, but then also the double engineering base. So he will definitely have to, you know, survive for just a little while if the Zerg decides to get aggressive. Snute, in the meantime, has just simply been droning. I mean, that's sort of what Snute does best. He just gets a ton of workers already. Like, he's making an additional 12 right now, right? Already, he's going over 60 workers at 5 minutes into the game. That is an absurd amount of workers, and that's really the reason why he can oftentimes end up picking up such impressive victories so early on. I mean, against weaker players, you know, he can just simply absolutely demolish them just by the amount of economy that he establishes for himself in the earlier stages of the game. So right now, right after he establishes all of that eco, right, that's when he starts adding on additional gas geysers. That's when he gets his evo chambers. That's where he gets his tech and all that. But look at that, right? He's basically droned up 3 bases entirely off of a single gas geyser, and that gas wasn't even mining for half the time. So what that means is just he's simply been spending all of his larva on getting as much as it possibly can when it comes to the amount of workers. It's very greedy, but apparently he's got enough information here on his opponent right here just by simply scouting the amount of units that he had at a certain amount of time. And of course this may just be also, you know, him knowing Jjakji's playstyle and knowing what his tendencies are. But regardless, like, apparently he felt safe enough to make that much economy this early on into the game. And, you know, he's still adding on more workers. He's gonna go over 80 workers here very shortly. 6 minutes into the game, going for that 4th base location. Finally starting up the lair here as well. And he's getting himself the +1/+1 upgrades. I mean, as a Zerg myself, right, whenever I play on the ladder, this is so scary to do. I mean, sure, he's been keeping tabs of the Terran's army, but if he takes, like, critical amounts of damage here, this could easily be game over. Now, he has indeed started producing units here without really seeing this Terran move out until right about right now. I don't think at the very least that he spotted this incoming right now, but he just simply knows that the Terran's timings are that he should be moving out across the map right about right now, and that is exactly the time where he started producing units already as well, and he's going to be able to make a ton of stuff. Now, of course, the amount of economy that he has is not going to be relevant if he doesn't have the larva to produce from it. So he is indeed adding on some queens here as well. But the queens are going to be needed here to start spreading some creep once again, too. Because there are a lot of Terran units and they have indeed cleaned up a lot of it. Ooh, the Banes trying to connect to all of these Marines. Nice bit of micro there, though. And I'm wondering if this is a correct engagement from Snute. He's losing so many units already. +1/+1, not quite done just yet, and that may have been a bit of an overextension right there by the Zerg player. If 1-1 was finished, he maybe would have been able to, you know, at least do a bunch of damage there, but all of these Zerg units just ended up falling, and Liquid Snute making some very uncharacteristic kind of mistakes there, losing a lot of his queens, and while it won't be game-ending damage, that definitely hurt him a lot more than it needed to. I mean, he's forced to produce a lot of units, he's forced to lose a lot of units as well, and that means that he's indeed gonna be adding on additional queens once again, because he simply wasn't able to defend against that. Going that far off creep though with slow banelings in general is a very, very risky move, and he knows very well that Jjakji is a player to continuously keep on piling on the aggression. That's really what he keeps doing, right? So basically what Jjakji is looking for right now, look at the amount of production, it's insane. Basically what he's trying to look for right now is to get the Zerg to a point where he can just continuously push. That's really Jjakji's strength. He pushes across the map constantly. He just simply rallies all of the units that he's producing across the map and he never stops fighting. On top of that, he does drops in other locations of the map. You gotta keep in mind there are a few Widow Mines in these as well, which make it very difficult for the Zerg player to deal with. Unless he once again flies into a spore. No, don't lose all your Medifex, dude. Oh my god, that is so painful. And such a silly move as well. Now, of course, they are microing on the other end of the map. The Widow Mines are in solid positions there, but those are the kinds of things that Snute needs at this point to try and get back into this game. I mean, that was such a big loss there as far as economy goes, or as far as units go, rather. 20 workers, or 20 supply worth of units roughly. There's about 10 supply or so per dropship, depending on the amount that they exactly had in there. But regardless, I mean, that really, really hurt the Terran player right there, as that could have done so much damage. It was forced to split off a lot of the Zerg's army as well, and all things considered, that was relatively unfortunate. Now, we do have the +1 melee upgrade coming in for the Mutalisk. That Widow Mine still in the main base doing a bunch of damage, already picking up 8 kills right now, and eventually, indeed, the Overseer does get morphed in as well, but here we go. So, Snute has come out several times in the past that if he reaches a critical mass of like 20 plus Mutalisk, he just sort of wins the game. He's once upon a time shared like his statistics on social media, if I'm not mistaken. I think it must have been on Twitter, where I saw him post like, hey, if I get like over 32 like mutas in a single given game at one point during the game, I've got like over 90% win rate in Zerg vs Terran. Something crazy statistic like that. And I mean, it's not surprising. His Mutaling Bane control is superb, but of course he's up against a very high level caliber player here as well. And while he does have a lot of mutas out, for now at the very least, there are a few Medivacs that are still dealing a lot of damage, picking up quite a couple of those Widow Mines very nicely, though that Widow Mine indeed is floating towards the surface as well. Does get disintegrated apparently by all of the water. I'm not entirely sure how that works. The dropship over here does get picked up as well. The Queen will be able to get the kill on that. And it looks like we may have peace for just a little while, but hold that thought, because once more, Jjakji is on the prowl. The Marines are trying to connect with as many of those mutas as they possibly can. Widowmine's trying to get the splash damage in with beautiful splits there. Wow! All of a sudden, this fight is looking pretty... Oh my god, this is looking really interesting. A few mutas, though, are coming down. The one thing to keep in mind is that these medevacs will need to get on out of there. Those are the kinds of units that carry the Terran player towards the later stages of the game. If they end up falling here, that is extremely painful for a Terran, because all of a sudden the supply counts are looking very solid here for the Zerg. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, once Snute gets to that point and he's able to build up that much economy, right, besides the crazy amount of drones that he can get away with in the earlier stages of the game, his mutilating Bane play is absolutely gorgeous, and it really allows him to get a ton of additional units out. In the meantime, though, Jjakji, while piling on a lot of aggression, it looks like he's gonna sit back for at least a little bit. He's gotten himself a 4th base location, getting a planetary fortress on that as well, so he's gonna be able to shut that down very, very nicely. And on top of that, he's floating over the main command center, now that this one is practically mined dry, towards another expansion, and he's gonna be able to continuously up his income. So that really will give him a substantial amount of resources here to just keep on piling the aggression once again very shortly. And here's one thing that we do have from that +1/+1 research very early on into the game. He gets himself a super early 3-3, and that is what Zerg cannot get without a hive. You need a hive as a Zerg player to get up to 3-3, and in this instance, Jjakji does not need to worry about such things. He simply got himself an armory, and that is where this match can easily flop back into the Terran's favor. I mean, that's the thing, right? You need to be investing into your tech, and so far, I mean, Snute has been doing that initially into this game, but so far, he's sort of stuck on the lair tech, and that's not quite where you want to be as a Zerg player at this point in the game. 3-3, just about to finish up. There are a lot of Terran units as well. As far as the army supplies go, you can see they are practically even here. Snute just slightly ahead with 3 more supply, but regardless, this is going to be a very, very tricky engagement for him to take. Now, if he manages to pick up all of these units for practically free, like he's been able to do so far, he should be in a reasonably good position. A couple of the Zerglings trying to go for a run by as well. They do not have adrenal glands just yet, so they will indeed be taken care of right there by just a handful of these Marines and those Marauders. But here's where the engagements do become very, very interesting. It will all come down to the player with the better control. 3-3 upgrades will be a massive help. Of course, the mutas will be able to pick up whatever the Terran players got here. Gets a pickup right there of that one Widow Mine to pick up, you know, potential additional aggression. We'll be able to snipe a few of these depots, but I mean, that's not really going to be that big of an issue unless he gets all 5 of them. Wow. Alright, I guess I take that back, because that really does hurt the Terran quite a bit. But at this point, the Terran has advanced to the eastern part of the map, and indeed, these Widow Mines are going to be able to get into the position, while the Zerg player did indeed expand over here as well. The Zerg did not scout that the units were all over the map, moving into this direction, and while there are a lot of these units, though, from the Zerg, I wonder if there is enough. Like, it looks like all of a sudden, Jjakji has been shut down. Both players trading over 50 supply there in units. But eventually, I mean, I'm gonna have to give that upper hand here. Oh my god, whew, that's so painful. I'm gonna have to give that upper hand here to the Terran player, because he's gonna be able to decide the pace of that game. Those medevacs with the dropships, or those Marines rather with the dropships, still doing so much damage. Picking up another command or another hatchery right here as well, and I'm starting to be a little bit worried, because this game is getting very quickly out of control here of Snute. He needs to stabilize. If the Terran player is going to be able to do whatever they please for the remainder of this game and just keep on piling the aggression on, that is exactly what Jjakji wants. I mean, he basically relies on his opponent crumbling under the pressure, and so far in this match, it seems like that may very well be the case. The 3-3 upgrades, of course, helping him out tremendously. 4 additional hatcheries are indeed going down right now, because the Zerg had a lot of additional expansions here and a lot of additional resources, but these fights is not, like, these engagements you can't really take anymore as Zerg, because there are so many Widow Mines burrowed everywhere that it's very tricky for him to find a proper engagement for him. Did the Adrenal Glands upgrade get researched just yet? It looks like that is not going to be the case. There's no Ultralisk switch either, so it looks like Snute may very well be a little bit worried here that he is not going to be able to survive for that long, so instead he's just sticking on his Mutilating Bane play with the +2/+2 upgrades for a little while longer, sniping as many of the things as he possibly can, though. Beautiful control once again. I think maybe one Muta ended up falling there, but he's getting so much value worth for these units, and that's exactly what he needs here. If he wants to come back into this match, he needs to try and sort of crumble the Terran player, to get to a point where he does not feel comfortable to move out again. So Zerg has time here to build up additional economy. Well, once again, of course, these Marines are gonna be very good at picking up so many of these kills. And once again, a medevac is gonna try and move across the map here to get as much damage here as he possibly can. Few Marines still hanging out in the bottom left corner as well. This base has indeed been retaken, and the one in the top right corner has indeed been taken once again here as well. And it looks like Zerg at the very least now feels comfortable enough to get himself an Ultralisk Cavern. But of course, Terran is now going to be on the prowl. Given a little bit of time and a little bit of leeway, all of a sudden the Liberators will be able to start dealing a lot of damage. And with just a little bit more, oh my god, so many SCVs though, but just with a little bit more time, right, I'm starting to get worried. Oh my god, all of the splash damage of the Liberators though. Nice splits there. Does keep the majority, I think, of all of those Mutalisks alive. That could have been really poor really fast. Because of course Liberators do deal anti-air damage that splashes to nearby units as well. But it looks like for now the Zerg has been able to stabilize, and while the dropships are still dealing some damage, I think those will be picked up with relative ease as well. But at the same time, while the dropship is in the main base and part of the Zerg army is going to be forced to split up, all of the rest of the Terran army has advanced through the eastern flank of this map. And while some Marines are indeed going down, that base will once again have to be paid for as well, as it will end up falling. And all of these Terran units are in a beautiful position. Look at the amount of Widow Mines unburrowing them at the last second so they do not all connect with just a single group of Zerglings. And while nice splits do happen here initially, I wonder though, did the Terran player just overextend? Look at this, beautiful moves here by both of these players, taking blows left and right. Once again, that splash damage of these Liberators hurting the hurting the Mutalisk a lot. Nice hit there though on that one Widow Mine, picking up about 7 Baneling kills there. And it looks like finally Zerg has found some resources here to get the Adrenal Glands upgrade, which is the Zergling attack speed. Makes them significantly stronger once they manage to connect to any of these units. And I wonder who is gonna end up picking up this game, because so far this is starting to become really epic. I love games like this. We do see some burrowed Banelings now as well. Of course, Terran will need to start scanning ahead here, because 2 Banelings can do significant amounts of damage. I'm gonna try and keep an eye out on that. But of course, there are still so many Mutas, and with one little misstep, these Mutas can end up falling. I mean, if they accidentally fly into a few Liberators, or they accidentally fly into, for example, a group of Widow Mines, things can go south very, very quickly. Once again, that dropship, even though there are so many Mutas out on the map, right, apparently he does feel comfortable enough, and actually that expansion is not gonna live. Last second console, very, very well done here. But Jjakji has got himself another expansion, and it looks like indeed the Zerg is gonna be able to take one here as well in the bottom left corner of the map, after the one in the top right just simply got shut down several times, and he's been forced to, you know, expand elsewhere. I mean, he's got to get his resources here somewhere, and while Snute indeed is maxed out, and he is also getting his chitinous plating upgrade, there are still so many Terran units out. Did Zerg research 33? No, he still hasn't found the time for that just yet. I mean, the thing is, it's such an expensive research, right? And it takes a few minutes for that to be finished up as well. You don't want to be rushing it out against a Terran player of the caliber right here of Jjakji. You need to try and be very cost efficient with your army, but getting your research done too early is definitely a bit of a risk as well. So while he did end up, you know, getting a reasonably early hive here, he hasn't really been able to make good use of it until just about a minute or so and a half ago. A lot of Terran units though. These Widow Mines once again trying to connect to the best of his abilities. The Marines connecting beautifully as well, making sure that they get a lot of value there. Once again, the Liberators connecting with so many of these air units, and so many Mutas end up falling there. Beautiful micro here by Jjakji, kiting back all of those units, and all of a sudden the Zerg supply has plummeted. Did you see that? The kiting backwards right there, when Zerg was just for a split second not paying attention to his Mutas. All of a sudden they ended up falling, and while they will be able to deal with a couple of these Liberators here and sort of, you know, get revenge and payback, the supplies are now heavily in favor of the Terran. What a beautiful move. At the same time, dropships once again going down on the other end of the map, picking up as much as he possibly can, reinforcing with the rest of the units through the middle of the map here as well. And I think that Snute has just crumbled under the pressure of the Terran player, as indeed he's been trying his very best here to hold on. He's been trying to go up to a very powerful army, making you know, a bunch of ultras here and getting those upgrades. Eventually Jjakji just simply piled on the aggression, and he was waiting for that one slip up, and there indeed it ended up happening. The Mutas fell down, and Jjakji ends up picking up the victory in this best of 3 series. Beautiful games here. I absolutely adore watching these kinds. I mean, it's very tricky. I mean, you can see both of these players losing so many units, but Snute just ended up losing about 10,000 more resources there, which is, you know, just a little bit too much. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. While you're at it, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Links are in the description. I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.